It's been a while since we did an FF8 challenge run, so I think we can all agree it is long overdue at this point. Not only that, but I'm going to finally overcome my terrible relationship with RNG. By which I mean, this video may make me want to jump off of a cliff. Why? Because we're playing slots only, and sadly, it's not as broken as FF7 slots. Now, let's go over the rules, shall we? So, rule number 1, as the name suggests, we are only allowed to use slots in battle. This is Selphie's limit break. At no time can any other action be used except in one situation. I am allowed to use draw to acquire new Guardian forces. However, it is not allowed to draw magic. All other characters must defend or skip their turn in battle if they are alive. Rule 3. So as Rule 1 mentions, only slots is allowed. This means I cannot use items, magic, or GFs in battle. However, I am allowed to defend as that's done with the triangle button and not an actual battle menu command. Rule 4. This is RNG the game. As such, I'm going to try to make my life as easy as possible. So we're going to allow the use of the end. Look, if we're lucky enough to get it, then you bet your butt we're gonna use it. And rule 4, we're going to allow the use of any and all auto abilities. For example, auto protect and auto potion, etc. is allowed. Same with return damage and auto reflect. We're technically not using a command after all, and therefore it's allowed. Now, for the last rule. Remember to comment to enter our weekly merge giveaway. So far, we've had 4 winners who have picked up a sweet OnlyFlans t-shirt. And who knows, maybe you could be the next winner. Just like our sponsor,
Corsair and their Scimitar Elite Wireless Gaming Mouse, complete with 16 reprogrammable buttons on the side of the mouse, which you can adjust up to a massive 26,000 DPI for those of you who are absolutely superhuman when it comes to reactions, and 2 of the best things ever, up to 150 hours without needing to recharge. And when you do need to recharge, it takes less than 90 minutes and you can carry on playing while it is on charge. Another key bonus, the size. The ergonomics of this thing is crazy good if you've got absolutely giant man hands like me. This is definitely the best gaming mouse I've used in a long time, and it's one that I'm going to stick with. If you want to pick one up yourself, then check the link down below in the description. Okay, let's do this thing. Pick up our first 2 GFs and leave the classroom to grab some cards. And now it's time for 2 things. Firstly, to mod Selphie into the party a little earlier than usual, and as you might have guessed, we're going to play cards. Now, this is actually going to be far more important than you might actually realize. Why? Well, slots is a limit break, and we can only basically use a limit break when we're in yellow HP, which means when we're at or below 25% of our maximum. This means the higher our max HP is, the more HP we can technically have and still use slots. However, even at max HP, we're still always going to be below 2,500, just so we can use limit breaks. And of course, we can't use Aura in this run as that is a magical ability. So needless to say, we're going to die a lot this run. Anyway, our first order of business is to run around Garden and draw from the draw points, which yes, is allowed as we aren't in a battle right now. Granted, the few spells we have here is basically nothing and does basically nothing for our stats, but it's a start. All we can really do right now is go beat Ifrit. I choose the 40-minute timer as well because of the fact I'm going to need to reduce Selphie's HP so I can actually use slots. The problem is with her having lower HP, she might die before I can kill Ifrit. We'll need to hope for some good RNG, but there's actually another problem. She can't get into Fire Cavern as the game just crashes. That's because I have 3 party members on the field though, so it's actually an easy fix.
I just need to remove her from the field party using a program called Hein. Once we get to the fight though, Bombshell dies first, while I wait for Ifrit to lower my HP enough to use slots. But I quickly realize there's no way I can use the fastest battle speed here. It's gonna suck big time trying to do that. And while I do get 2 UCs out of the first being 2 Blizzard casts, and the second being 2 Fundara casts, we only did about 350 damage total, so about half of his health before Sophie died and we failed. It's okay though, I have an idea. Firstly, the draw point on the overworld in Balam's train tunnel contains Isuna, and it refills. Likewise, the Cure draw point at Balam also refills, and so does the Thunder and Cure draw point in the town of Balam. So what we're going to do now is add Selphie back into the field party and keep doing laps between the 4 draw points. Start with the ones in Balam town, then grabbing Isuna from the train tunnel, and finally Cure again in Balam Garden, and then back to the town. This way I can run in circles in the town, and once they refill, carry on running around for a little until they refill. This way we can get 100 Isuna, Cure and Thunder spells without even having to fight anything, which we can then junction to Selphie's magic stats to get a little boost. Then we can try again. Also, since I need to keep Selphie off of the field map for now, I swap her junctions to Squall so he can draw from the draw points, and then I'll move everything back over to her. Once the grind is done, we head back to Ifrit's cave. I heal up everybody bar Selphie so they can take a little more beating and keep Selphie lower at 4 slots. After a hit, I start spamming triangle to refresh for a limit on Selphie, and when I finally get it, I feel super lucky because it's Aura. But then she casts it on Blondie for some reason. Great, wasted turn. Second limit, I keep refreshing hoping for something good, but my RNG is cursed, and so I settle for 3 blizzards. Same with the second limit and third limit. Then I get 2 blizzards for the win. Although I have to admit Ifrit had more HP than I remember. But also we have now completed the tutorial. And hey, it only took 2.5 hours. Once that's done, it's time to really start our card grind. We're going to do this for quite a while as there's a few things we want. Namely, and I can't believe I'm doing this yet again for another challenge, but 100 flares. The usual Gar spells and Tornado, etc. We can't get those spells just yet though, as we need to get the abilities first. This means it's now time for an AP grind. Now, normally I would use the fish on the beach, but that would be a bad idea this time around as they are stronger and give more EXP. So, I instead choose the even slower method of farming AP inside Ifrit's cave, since there's no timer now and the mobs are always level 1 in here. This means the least amount of EXP possible, which is ideal since right now all I want is AP, which is why any fights with bombs in, I flee as they give way too much EXP. Once that's done, I rig the Queen of Cards to give me the all trade rule to make this go so much faster. Win the Minimog and Quirster's cards, then start farming the players in Balam Garden. And while, as you can see by the game clock, this took way too long. But then I can't be the only one who loses track of time while playing Triple Triad. For me, it's like Chocobo Hot and Cold, and I can easily play an absolute ton without even realizing it. But now we have tons of stuff for conversions at least, and since cards is basically the only way the entire run I'm going to get magic, these items will serve me for the rest of the game. And now Selphie has some nice stats. Well, nicer anyway. Over 3000 HP, which means I can limit break from as low as 750, a nice 56 for magic, so our slots should deal some semi-decent damage at least. Hopefully enough to get through XATM, but we'll see soon for that one, since it's now time to actually head over to Dollet. We also replace Cypher with Selphie in Dollet since the game force removes her, and then it's time for our next boss, Biggs and Wedge along with Alvert. Biggs and Wedge just take a couple of basic slots to get through, and thankfully they mostly target the guys, helping Selphie to stay relatively healthy. Granted, not very healthy, but still, it's enough for now since my slots are doing about 200 damage a hit. Once Alvaret spawns, we of course draw Siren, which is allowed per the rules, and then spam slots with a double Fundara, and then, well, it kinda ends with, well, the end. I have no idea how I got it with such a low threat level and the others alive, but hey, I'll take it since it's an easy quick win to what could have been a slightly annoying boss with its AoE attacks. Now we have XATM though. We have 30 minutes to get back to the beach, so of course I'm not going to try to go for the kill. But more than that, I'm worried about Selphie's HP. We can skip most of the fight, but some bad luck could end up killing Selphie. I did save in the tower beforehand, so it's not a huge loss if we do game over, but I would still like to avoid it. We also show off how much RNG hates me, since I get 2 Blizzard casts 3 times in a row, in 3 different fights before fleeing. And then we finally get a change with Thunderer. Ultimately though, we make it back to Balam safely. Cypher steals the car, making me walk, which freaking sucks, but it is what it is, I guess. And since I know there's going to be at least 20 comments about this specific thing, we're going to get Zal's card later, not right now. Why? Because we have more card playing to do later anyway, so might as well just do it all at once. Now, let's go be the most attractive person at the ball. No cutscene though. Heavily copyrighted. Then we have a hot date with our teacher. You know what though, I've never understood this hot teacher thing. Like, all my teachers in primary and high school were incredibly old and unattractive. Even my friends from other schools didn't have any hot teachers. Maybe they just don't exist in the UK, who knows. But now we have another boss, Granaldo and Ronaldo. Not the footballer, and honestly I feel like I got the boss's name wrong here, but it's just what I always call them. Maybe it helps they get kicked like footballs. And, oh, it turns out their name is Raldo. Look, I was close, okay? I was close. So, for this fight, Selphie is obviously quite low, so a few hits can kill her. Our first attempt at slots gives us double water, which manages to kill Raldo off, and then one hits the boss. Thankfully, they kinda leave Selphie alone, which lets me set up for another one, where after a few swaps I managed to get 3 Blizzard casts, which kills off everything else for a nice quick little boss. I have to admit though, I'm debating if I should level up or stay low level. Higher levels result in better slots. Well, kinda. It plays a part in better slots. I'm sure Daft can do some wizardry and throw something up on screen to show off how slot tables work, but if I do level up, it's a double-edged sword. Most bosses have level caps, which is fine, however some don't, which would suck for us big time. So best to just play it safe, I think, and go case by case. If I wall, then I level to try and get better slot odds. Now though, we have a pain in the butt fight, Diablo. Well, right after we win the Cypher card from Sid anyway. He really did not want to play it though, which sucks. Why? Because he played it in the first game, but I messed up and the match ended in a draw. I blame that on it being 2 AM and I've only had 1 coffee since 4 PM. But hey, at least we got there in the end. So now let's go fight the big bad demon. And remember, we can't use the ultimate blind cheese since we can't cast magic or attack. This means to blind him, we need Selphie to cast it, which I think is possible. Off the top of my head though, I can't actually remember if it's in slots or not. We also have to wait for him to weaken Selphie down since there was a story heal after the Raldo fight in the training center. I did try to unequip the junctions and then re-equip them, as I could have sworn that just left your HP at what it was, but no, it just heals you, which sucks. It's okay though. Diablos uses a couple demis and then Graviger, and voila, weaken slot. My luck is pretty terrible, but I do manage to get 2 blind casts. Great, they do actually appear. Sadly, both missed, which freaking sucks. Next up, I get a Rapture and use it thinking maybe it will work, but it doesn't. For those who don't know, Rapture is basically the end, but things can be immune to it. Think like the Death spell. On the third attempt, I actually get a double Ultima, which is insane, as each hit deals a massive 2000 damage. Super clutch. But sadly, before I can get any more slots in, Diablos murders me with his melee, since I couldn't blind him. Well, let's do it again. And this is exactly why you should never chase wins on a slot machine. We start out with a single blind that works, so now it's really hard for him to kill us at least, but not impossible. Then I get a nice little holy afterwards, followed by a double Ultima, but then I'm afraid my luck vanishes completely. Like, seriously, completely gone. For the rest of this fight, I only get a couple of normal raw spells, 1 or 2 Gar spells, a couple of waters, and even had to resort to using just 3 fires, because it was giving me nothing else worth using. Zell does eventually get cleaved in half by him, which sucks considering he was blind, but on the bright side, at least it wasn't Selphie who died. She is still thankfully dodging everything for now. And after a little back and forth, he does indeed go down. So now we have another GF and Siren learned Life Refinery. So let's make some new spells and equip them to Selphie. This gives me a huge HP boost, all the way up to over 5,000 now, and also a nice boost to some other stats as well. And as a bright side, with 5,400 max HP, this means I can now easily limit break from as low as 1,350 HP. But now we're going to chill for a little bit. We're going back to Ifrit's cave to do some more AP grinding on the bats and the buells. The goal now is to get encounter none with Diablos and the HP abilities. This way we can push Selphie's HP all the way to 9,999. Which means she can limit break from below 2,500, which is great, and I also do the seed exams so I get a gil with this grind as well. Next up, we go win Zal's card from his mum, which was thankfully a little quicker than I got Cypher's card, but still took a good 5 minutes. Also, we have lots of card playing to do later, so to save us some heartache, we're going to use the Queen of Cards to swap the card rule back to Diff. The reason for this is because of rule degradation. You see, the all rule turns into direct, the absolute worst rule in the game. However, Diff still lets us win tons of cards, and when it eventually degrades, it turns into the one rule, which doesn't totally screw us. We're also not going to play cards right away in the next few areas because we're going to use RNG manipulation to remove the really annoying rules. But now it's off to Timber. We can ignore the Laguna Dream sequence thanks to encounter none on Diablo. Then in Timber, it's time for Fake President, but we have some issues. I need to protect Selphie from status effects, mainly Berserk. If we lose control of her after all, then we can't use slots, so we need to make sure that doesn't happen. First though, pet the Dogo for being best boy, well, girl in this case, and then we have my most hated part of FF8 challenges, the damn train section. Why? Well, the PC version has terrible controls for it. For example, normally circle is 1, X is 2, square is 3, and triangle is 4. However, for me, the triangle and circle are swapped and it's more irritating to deal with. After this, we have the Fake President and the Garo fights. Fake President goes down in 1 slot with some Blizzard casts. As for Garo, he hits me a few times and inflicts silence on Squall, while I get some terrible RNG luck on slots. It takes ages to even get some basic raw casts. All the while, he's working me down. Imagine when mobs start actually hitting really hard. I won't have time for slots then unless I get lucky. I think I underestimated how much RNG there is going to be in this run, but hey, at least I got a holy in. So, let's finish everything off in Timber, and then we have some side stuff we need to do. We're going to remove all the rules from Dollet with RNG manipulation. If you want to know how to do that, check out my FFA playlist as it has detailed manipulation guides. Then, we're going to win the Siren card from the pub and move on. Do the Looney Panda section, Squall has a breakdown in Galbadia, and we recruit a Texan. Oh, and we're trying to assassinate the country's leader also. There's a student here in Galbadia Garden who is here from Trobia Garden, so we can actually reset those rules as well. Now for brothers. In the first fight, I get hella unlucky with slots, like seriously unlucky. I got basically nothing but full cure and 1 or 2 cast tier 1 magic. I try and flip it through for a couple of Gar spells or even 3 raw spells, but no luck, so in the end I settle for 3 blizzard casts. I did notice as well while I was flipping through the slots that his regen was still ticking, so that means I need to be faster on the selection. And if I don't get anything good, then I just need to take what's giving to me. Turns out it doesn't really matter though, as the 3 blizzard casts was somehow enough to actually kill him off. Next fight though is both of the brothers, and this means my spells now are going to be split between them. And they both have regen, which means I'm absolutely gonna need to be very fast here, or they're just gonna keep fully healing. In the fight, the little one's regen is actually 300 a tick, way more than I expected. Damage-wise, I'm getting hit for close to 100 per hit, so naturally, Squall and Renoa die pretty quick. So what about slot RNG? Well, kinda mixed. I got some Gar spells off, which did some nice work, but then I only got basic tier spells right after. Then we were into the raw spells before we finally moved mostly to Gar spells. Thankfully, with both other characters dead, my threat level was high enough that we got into a good slot bracket and managed to get a holy out for a nice 1100 damage, which ended the fight for good and got us our new GF. And that's kinda all the optional stuff for now, so let's go finish disc 1 and crash the game. Why? Well, you'll see. Firstly, we need to return to Daling City and deal with Caraway. Take a super long tour of the city, get locked in a room which conveniently has an escape passage in there, and head out into the sewers. Oh, and Renoa gets mind controlled. I do have to admit though, Edea gives one hell of a speech. At least unlike other politicians, she was telling the truth about what she was going to do. So, I mean, she'd have my vote. Actually, I guess she didn't need votes, since I'm pretty sure nobody would be dumb enough to run against the person who killed the previous president so publicly. Anyway, in the sewers, we don't need to do anything, as there's no forced battles or bosses down here, so can safely run through the start until we swap over to Squall. This is where we need to save and mod Selfie back into the party for the Iguan fight. Now, fun fact, these guys actually have auto-reflect, and if you didn't know, all the spells from slots are reflectable, as if they were normally cast. There is, however, a way around this. They have the Carbuncle GF, and once we draw that, they actually lose their reflect status. I do, however, just need to make sure I protect myself against break, which is simple enough, and then we can just slot away to get us the kill. But now we have a problem, the Edea fight. This is actually impossible to mod characters in. Why? Because the game forces Renoa into Squall's party and we can't change her out. Likewise, there is no way to save with Squall after the sewer section to remedy this. And I have looked literally everywhere. Seriously, I spent a solid 5 to 6 hours looking for a save anywhere mod to do this with, and couldn't find anything other than some very dodgy looking Russian exe file, which I'm absolutely not risking. But hang on, you might remember we had this issue back when we did our FF8 Edea only run, but we did it fine then, it only crashed, so why is it a problem now? Well, that's because of how I did it. You see, I didn't actually mod Edea into the party for that run. I modded Squall's model, weapon, and stats to be the same as Edea. And that was fine because we didn't need her limit break. However, there's no way to mod character limits that I've found. So even if we did that, we would not be able to use slots. This means I have absolutely no way of getting past Edea with slots. And there's actually another boss this happens on as well. Norg. It's the same situation there. I can mod Selphie into the party, but then when we use the elevator to go down into Norg's room, it forcibly changes the party to whoever we took to Balam, with no save point down there to change it back, and no way to leave the room to change it. These are 2 boss fights now in the whole game where we 100% absolutely cannot use Selphie at all. And that means challenge failed. No, it is not possible to beat Final Fantasy VIII using only slots. But wait, don't leave, the video still has plenty to go. Why? Well, sure, the challenge is quite obviously impossible. However, you guys have made your opinions very clear in the comment sections for previous videos that we shouldn't end runs because of a mandatory unskippable moment, kinda like tutorials. So we're going to continue on by ignoring these 2 specific situations because the game won't even let me try, and instead we're going to see if the rest of the game is possible. So for Edea, we just put the junctions on Squall and use him to take her out along with Cypher. For simplicity's sake, we're going to count Cypher and Edea as one fight here. So let's throw up a little counter, shall we, for the minimum amount of times we can't use slots to progress. After this, we're in prison. Squall gets some healthy torture because, I mean, just in general, torture is fun. Well, unless it's CBT, then it's not very fun. Rinoa gets let out of prison thanks to Daddy, and then we break out. Now, you might be questioning how we're going to get weapons back. Well, go down 1 floor to the save point, save the game, mod Selphie back into the party, and then up we go. This way, we can still use slots on the 2 regular soldiers here who are trying to steal our stuff. We take them out with a double Blizzerer. Biggs and Wedge after this though are much more annoying. Not because they're difficult, but because of RNG here with slots is so astronomically bad, it is unreal. We get terrible spells pretty much the entire fight, all the way up until the end where I get some Thunderger casts. A little overkill though for Wedge, who was already close to death, but hey, this channel's all about the overkill, right? And now we safely make our way out. Well, safely is extremely debatable, as well as we had one heck of a final battle at the top. I got lucky at first getting a double Holy Cast and then a Blizzard right after. We end up killing the soldiers super fast, but the machines survive it all. Then my slot lock is just completely vanished, never to be seen again. Squall is left entirely alone and Rinoa ends up dying. Then I'm just watching Selphie get lower and lower and lower, while the slots are being kinda mean. I do eventually even get a double flare, but the last machine just will not die. And at this point, Selphie is on just 19 HP. So I know I need to kill it fast, so I just start taking any old spell I get, and eventually we get a single Fundara, which thankfully takes it out before I die. And now we're out, so the party splits up to stop a missile strike on Garden. And this is where we're going to do a little trick, which we can only do right now. If we don't, then the next time we can do this is actually after getting the Ragnarok. So what we're going to do is go through the missile base normally until we get to the room with the missile launcher in it. We're going to give another character all of my full life magic, and then we're going to use the draw point in here to draw some. This is basically the only full life draw point that actually refills. And so we're going to use this to give everybody 100 full life. Reason being, I feel like I'm going to need them to be meat shields later. So more health gives me a better chance of this actually working out for me. For the next 3 soldiers though, I forget to take move find out, so my magic is lower, which sucks, but the fight was kind of funny. I start with a tier 1 fire spell, then we get the lovely tier 2 spell Blizzerer, before finally ending it with a tier 3 Blizzard. Kinda nice how we could just move through the tiers like that. Next up, we set the base self-destruct for 10 minutes so we can leave instantly. Then it's time for the giant tank boss. Now, this one was the whole bag of weird. The others do end up dying pretty quickly, which I'm really not sad about because it just improves my threat meter, which can result in better slot odds. We start out with some basic slots, nothing too amazing really, but I do get reduced super low on HP, so I play it safe and use Curaga. Then, because I way overhealed, I get bored and find a bug. If I press triangle right after getting hit, even with good health, it seems to give me a limit break. No idea if this is even an actual thing or if it's just placebo. Kinda like mashing the A button when catching Pokemon. But hey, it worked and I got an aura up. So next turn, I get an easy slot where I actually land a double ultimate, which is awesome as it kills off the tank for me. Then it's just a case of one more slot with a free hit Fundara to kill the other 3 soldiers before we blow up and explode into a million PCs in the base. So let's forget these characters and head back to Garden, shall we? Where we instantly leave, save the game, and mod Selphie in to replace Cell. It's amazing how fast she got from the missile base all the way back to Garden, huh? But now this lets us go through the mandatory trash fights before we get to the oil boil boss. And can I just say, there's so much oil down here that it wouldn't surprise me if America soon decides to come and help fight the Galbadians. But oil boils, and these things hurt when we have challenge limitations. Oil shot basically one-shots Squall, it does one-shot Renoa and deals about 500 damage to Selphie. They have a major weakness to fire though, so I use basically any fire spell I can. Sadly though, I start off with just basic fire and then firer, before I get a nice Firega in to kill the first one. Things took a dangerous turn here though. I got a couple more hits in, like an awesome flare and then 2 Blizziger casts when Selphie was down to just 300 HP. Which sadly didn't kill it. So I expected a game over from oil shot, but I got an extra turn in and managed 2 Firegas just in the nick of time, which thankfully ended the fight for me. Now, we get to Norg, and just like before with Edea, this is the second fight that is entirely impossible to do with Selphie. Because even though we can save in Squall's room, the minute we go down to Norg's chambers, it resets the party and there is no save point down there. Not only that, but we also can't leave until after the fight, which completely eliminates any possible chance of modding Selphie back into the party. So we're going to add +1 to the counter for impossible fights, which takes us up to 2. And now though, we can do every single fight after Norg with Selphie just fine. So let's go. For Norg, I draw Leviathan and smack him around with Squall just so we can move on. At Fisherman's Horizon, we can save at the train and add Selphie into the party ready for the next boss, the BGH, which Selphie just so happens to be driving, so we have a little paradox going on here, but hey, that's normal in games, right? But Selphie got the main brunt early on, which forced me into casting a wall for safety, and then basically right away I had to use a full cure. Squall and Renoa died pretty quickly, but now I have to wait ages for it to slowly trickle my health down so I can attack again since my HP is too high. I did get an aura before this, but it wore off almost instantly, and sadly the attack spells I got were almost useless as well. As the fight progressed, I start hitting him with basically every attack spell I got in a decent amount, which sadly translated to a lot of tier 1 magic, the odd tier 2 spell, and very rarely a tier 3 spell. I had to then heal again with another Curaga, which thankfully put me to just below half HP, which means I could still use slots. After a big back and forth, we finally take it out with a triple Firega, but Jesus, did this fight take a long time. Like, way longer in fact than I actually expected. Plus, the fact that I needed to heal twice in this fight has me a little concerned for later. BG doesn't really have much at its disposal, but it still required 2 heals and was a long, drawn-out fight. So what about later ones that are, like, much more dangerous? Well, I guess we'll see when we get to them. For now though, we have a concert and get to enjoy a dirty little magazine, which, not gonna lie, I kind of miss going into stores and seeing the top shelf full of them. Anybody else remember that? But, well, we go from becoming an adult to getting our first car... motorhome? I mean, that kind of sums it up, right? Like, it's a flying house, basically. But while Sophie is feeling kind of sad right now and doesn't want to be in the party, don't worry, we'll mod her in before the next mandatory boss. For now though, we go to Chocobo Forest to get Boko. This way we can access Chocobo World, mainly due to needing a few items. Nothing major or honestly even super amazing, but I'll go over them shortly. Then we head over to Shumi Village to continuously use the Ultima Draw Point. Now, just like Full Life back in the missile base, we want 100 of this on everybody, because of using them as meat shields later, and 100 Ultimate will be great defensively. Now it's time for Chocobo World. I already have a save prepped from a long time ago, so I'm just going to use that, and then we're going to slightly cheese it by backing up that save, getting the items in-game, and then reloading our backed up save, so we can keep getting the items without spending 5 days playing Chocobo World. After this, we do a basic setup with our GFs, and then it's off to Ballant where we experience an hilarious glitch, because I modded Selfie into the party. I forgot this happens here, so we'll have to go with a normal party for now, and then mod her in later, as we can save at Zal's house anyway. Turns out, we didn't need to though, I just needed to mod Selfie into the field party as well. Now, we get 2 back-to-back bosses. Raijin is first, and thankfully due to the little boost from Chocobo World and Ultima from Shumi Village, my defenses and damage are now slightly increased. Nothing major, but a nice little boost. Now firstly, Raijin absorbs Thunder. So now that my spells are slightly powered up, can you guess what it keeps giving me? If you said Thunder Element, ding ding ding! You don't win a prize though, only subscribers who comment on these videos get entered into our weekly giveaway. After a little back and forth though, with basic low level spells, he does eventually go down. We were in no real danger here though, honestly, due to decent evasion. Next up though is Raijin again, only this time he's paired with Fujin. So first order of business is to draw Blue Waffle. Look, if you don't know why I named it this, let's just say you missed out on some truly hilarious streams. We have some absolutely hilarious high drinks over there. Once we get the draw though, we go back into honestly very meh spells. We do eventually get a Holy, but I was massively disappointed in the damage. It was about 20% more damage than a normal Raw spell, but was actually weaker than a Gar spell, which I'm surprised about. I could have sworn it had a much higher multiplier. Maybe Fujin is just resistant to Holy. Not sure, as I've never really bothered to use it on her before. Eventually though, she also goes down, and so now it's time for a War of the Gardens. Well, after we go to Trobia and get some horrid flashbacks about growing up. But you know what, if GFs affect memories this much, maybe I have one junction to me and I just don't know how to use it. It could honestly explain my horrible goldfish memory, but there is one thing I remember. And that's to say, if you're still watching right now, then you must enjoy the video, right? Well, do me a huge favor and tickle that like button, please. It makes me all happy inside, and every time you like one of my videos, an imaginary kitten gets saved. And before anybody asks, I know we could technically go to Tomberry King right now, but in all honesty, I really don't think we can beat him because of the time limit. And likewise, I don't think we can beat Odin either. Instead though, we'll wait until a little bit later when Selfie is in the party naturally so we can go and try, since, well, modded characters really don't behave properly in that area. So we'll move on to Cerberus for now, who I'm honestly not expecting to beat. He was hell on earth in my magic only playthrough because of Reflect. Only this time we have no way to remove that and slots still get reflected. I'll give it a try though and see what happens, but ultimately I think this is going to be an optional boss we just have no chance against. At the start he puts a triple on himself, and then we slowly start to work him down with whatever spell we can get basically. We have to be fast here after all, so I'm not picky about what we use. He
does kill Rinoa, which kind of sucks since she's my fave character in this game, but what can we do? I do start to get really worried though as he gets turns in. He did a triple Thundergut, nothing to worry about as Selphie's immune to it. He does a physical hit, thankfully still nothing to worry about, and no sign of reflect just yet. But while I'm panic shuffling through the slots, we get a double Ultima cast. I use it not expecting much since my damage has took a major nosedive since Raijin and Fujin. But then Ultima comes on in like a wrecking ball and deals 3,300 damage a hit, which not only surprises and shocks me, it was even enough to kill the boss off, giving me another GF, which I honestly did not expect to happen, and yet here we are. Next up though is going to be Cypher and Edea with another GF to draw, as we can get Alexander from Edea. So for the first Cypher fight, we start off with a simple Raw spell and then a Gar spell while Squall gets killed off. All the while, Cypher is taunting me saying, "Is that all I've got?" Well, here's the thing, right? Selphie kind of took that personally, and remember the saying, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned"? Well, that kind of happened as we rained Brimstone down on him with a triple Meteor cast right after, dealing a lovely 15,000 damage total as we got the free cast for it. Poor Cypher clearly had no idea what slots are capable of. Although I guess he is kind of young for a casino. Okay, now I'm just questioning if Daling or Esthar even have casinos. They seem like the most likely cities for them, right? Well, we're getting sidetracked now, so let's move on to Edea and Cypher. Cypher goes down easily again, of course. Then for Edea, I draw Alexander and see a ton of Gar magic appear in the slots. So I think I'm on a high tier, so I skip aiming for the end, only to end up with way worse results. Just like my luck. It's also at this point I screwed up big time. She puts up Reflect. It's okay, elemental magic won't hurt me. Now, I'm pretty sure in FF8, some spells go through Reflect, and I decide to take the chance when eventually I land on a Holy. Turns out that was a bad idea as it's reflected and ended me. Also, this is why we did Chocobo World. I wanted Ribbon for this fight. Edea is just straight up evil with status effects, and Ribbon lets me ignore them. For the second attempt, it starts basically the same way. Cypher gets murdered and then I draw Alexander, but now I decide I want pure damage ASAP, and so I decide to cast any spell that has 3 UCs. We start with Blizzerer, move to a nice Fire Rigger, and so on and so forth. We do get pretty unlucky with the spell selection though, and don't really get anything super good, and sometimes even have to settle for some tier 1 spells. There just isn't anything we can do about it though. I need as much damage as possible before she uses Reflect. But she's a little nice to me right now, mainly using elemental spells that deal 0 damage, or trying status effects that I'm immune to as well. Realistically, the only way I can actually lose here is if she keeps using Maelstrom on me and then uses a physical hit. She also might have Ultima. I've seen her use it in this fight a few times, but I just can't remember if those were modded runs or not, as they were a while ago on streams. I do remember one of them catching everybody off guard though, so pretty sure she can use it in the base game. Thankfully though, we don't see it or reflect before we ultimately manage to down her. And with that, we move on to disc 3. But now this is going to be Hell on Earth disc. Why? Adel. Slots don't let me choose targets after all, and we have no way to heal Rinoa. This means the fight is going to suck even worse than my summon only run. But we have so many more horrible fights before that, like Mobile Type 8, and honestly I'm even a little worried about Abaddon, who just so happens to be the next boss we have to fight. Turns out I didn't need to be worried though, as I get a genius idea. Since slots operate on a table, if I refresh my turn when I get a bad table, I can then get a new table for attacks to load. So while Abaddon is in his standing phase, this is exactly what I end up doing. And while I don't get anything crazy like Ultima or Holy, I do however get a triple Fire Rigger, which I use when Abaddon starts to crouch again, which is the phase where he's weak to magic, and this deals an insane 3,500 damage a hit.
which is enough to one-shot him. After this, we end up in the super high-tech city of Esthar. And oh my god, how awesome would it be to live here? Well, so long as we don't get attacked by Looney Panda anyway, which we do. And I hate the forced 5-minute wait that the speed up doesn't even affect. But for now though, in order to save Renoa, we kinda need to blast off into space. Honestly, not sure why they decided to include space travel, but at least we got the best looking airship in the franchise, the Ragnarok. And an awesome song later, which I'm sorry you won't hear due to Eyes on Me being heavily copyrighted. But before we can hear it anyway, we need to catch Renoa out in the almighty vastness of space before we run out of fuel, oxygen, and, well, we kind of just float there. Luckily enough, by some odd miracle, there just so happens to be the Ragnarok in our floating path. So it's time to do the propagators. And this was surprisingly easier than I expected, with them actually dying in just 2 to 3 hits. I had honestly expected a little bit more of a fight from them, but I guess because my levels are so low and with Renoa being in the party, it's lowering the average even further, so they were a really low level, letting me take them down fast. But hey, no complaints here, it just means we can get to Mobile Type 8 faster. A boss that has a terrible 1 HP mechanic, insta-death skills, high damage, etc. Honestly, this is probably going to be the most scary fight in the game for this run. Before that though, with the Ragnarok, it's time to head to either the island closest to Hell or Heaven and draw the remaining spells we need like Meteor. After this, we poke the Hornet's Nest and go kill Bahamut. Sadly, I died, and since he has anywhere from like 18,000 to 34,000 health, depending on what level he gets for the fight, this will be awkward, so let's try a few more times. And sadly, no dice. I just couldn't get the kill before dying to Mega Flare, and since Bahamut is totally optional, I decided not to keep trying for the end. I feel it's a little cheap to keep resetting for it on an optional fight after all. So, Da finally wins around this time. Also, I have absolutely zero chance of beating Jumbo Cactus without the end as well. You see, he counterattacks every 5 turns with 10,000 needles. This means Selphie will die after 5 hits, and considering his HP pool, yeah, even if I got a triple ultimate every single time, it still wouldn't be enough. So let's move into a fight we can absolutely win. A rematch with Raijin and Fujin. We had a little back and forth here until they quickly killed Squall and Noah off. I hit him with a double blizzard, which doesn't really do much, but then Fujin decides to get really cocky and hit me with a meteor. The thing is, I have my defenses up and a good junction to my spirit, so it deals a whopping 3 to 4 damage a hit. I think that's actually some of the lowest damage I've ever seen in a challenge run before. But we decide to go on and show her who's boss, as we get a triple meteor right after, which thankfully I might add hits a lot harder, and is enough to take care of both of them. Really though, this was always gonna be a cakewalk. The next one, well, it's Mobile Type 8, and we have absolutely have to be careful here, because Corona can and will drop us to 1 HP every time it's used. And did I mention it, it uses it basically as soon as the fight starts. Well, when I started this run, I had no idea I'd get this far, but this is the fight I was worrying about the most because we are guaranteed to be dropped to 1 HP. And then we just have to try and heal and keep going. How did the fight turn out? Yeah, well, I start out aiming for a triple meteor, but my greed ruined me here because the pod split off and hit me with Corona. So I panic into using a double Curaga. This was a huge boo-boo. It basically fully healed me. So I spent ages waiting for another Corona just so I could get some damage in. I did eventually get a meteor cast off, but it was timed so poorly that the pod split right beforehand and they took a ton of the damage. Corona hits again. This time I managed to do just a double cure, which thankfully still keeps me in the yellow HP range before I get a triple Thundara off. This one does hit the pod, which is terrible, but 2 of them hit the main body for insane damage. Sadly, wasn't enough. Anywho, I got another Corona, which I decided to throw regen up to heal me with. This was a big mistake, as again, it took me freaking forever for Corona to knock me down. At this point, I know I've hit it a few times with some decent attacks, so I gamble on a Meteor cast getting most hits on the body. No idea if that would kill it or not, I'm just hoping. And sadly, it doesn't, so I get countered and die. It's okay though, because literally right after, we got this. Yep, the rematch gave us the end instantly, so I jumped at the chance to use it. Okay, hard boss done. Now we get an easy one before basically the impossible boss, Cypher. And, well, we start out with a few Gar spells while he murders Squall and Rinoa, but then our magic gets weaker and weaker as time goes on. We didn't get a single good spell. We did see the limit a few times though, just a shame my Uber protection negates the damage from it to almost nothing. Honestly though, nothing special happened here. It was just a 10-minute fight of me using mostly single cast raw spells because I just couldn't get anything good. So with him out of the way now, we have the impossible boss. Well, almost impossible anyway. Adel. The problem here is Rinoa is an attack target, and we can't direct our spells to only target Adel. And she has quite a lot of HP as well, so this is going to suck in general. We could potentially try for the impossible odds of all our attacks hitting Adel, but that's not gonna happen. Instead, we need to kill them both at the same time. Remember our summon only challenge? We know that strategy works, and we're going to have to employ it here, which means we need the end. And we all know how rare this is. Like seriously, I didn't actually keep track of how long or how many attempts I spent trying this. At one point, I gave up completely recording the attempts due to laptop storage space. What you're watching is actually footage from the first hour of attempts where Rinoa just kept dying. Now, I will admit, just like the summon only video, I got really frustrated here. Really frustrated, and I actually had to step away from the game for a little bit. This was genuinely the curse of playing slots. I felt like I was at a casino chasing the jackpot win, only instead of losing all my money instead, it was my sanity slowly slipping away with every skip pressed. Honestly, if I had infinite money that let me spin an actual slot machine this many times, I genuinely feel like I'd have hit the jackpot literally multiple times. It's no exaggeration to say I probably pressed the skip button well over 50,000 times. And yes, I did in actual fact skip the end once. That was when I had to walk away for a few days. I don't think I got that mad at a game since I was like 12. But we eventually got the stars to align a second time and got it. I know I sound kind of moany here, but honestly, I really don't think there are words which exist to describe the fury I felt here. I was very close to calling this on the roadblock of the run and actually giving up. But hey, we can move on. The 12 Sorceress fights were actually incredibly simple, especially after Adel. We're basically immune to damage for the first chunk, minus a very weak melee attack that deals less than 10 damage if it hits. And we can kill them off in 2 to 3 hits, so nothing too major. The final one though took the most time of this 10-minute fight, mostly because I was having no luck with spells and it has a lot more HP than the others. Although it did actually manage to knock me into yellow health, which I did chuckle at a little bit, but ultimately it still went down. And now we have the part where I hate my life, Ultimecia's Castle, where all my abilities are sealed. This means I can't use limit breaks. So, how are we going to do this? The same damn way we do every other time. Return damage on Red Giant. Yes, that's 3-hour method that I said in my summon only video that I'm never doing again. Well, here we are, and it is also totally legal by my rules after all. Return damage is not an action, and since I'll spend the entire fight there not doing anything, it's perfectly legal. This means we just wait for him to attack us and then heal up with auto potion, with a full inventory of potions and high potions, etc. Max health on all 3 characters, and we have more than enough health to survive. We just have to wait. Well, kinda. Okay, look, here's the thing, and I will fully accept if anybody wants to call me out for this. I did in actual fact not do return damage this time. Instead, I turned the booster on for max damage and hit away at him. Look, we've done the red giant method to unlock our first sealed ability twice now. We know the method works, I am fully capable of doing said method, and I have all the items required to do it. Instead, I saved 3 hours of my life after the Adel torment by doing it this way. This is the only time I've ever done anything like this in a challenge before, so hopefully you guys can understand where I'm coming from and are kind enough to give me a pass for this one fight. There's also another reason for this choice, but you guys won't actually see that video until easily next year. Discord users and stream viewers know exactly what I'm talking about here, and let me just give a great big fat middle finger to our lovely Ko-Fi supporter, Moop, for making me do a video thanks to his tier perk. With that little event out of the way, Red Giant is down and you can call me out. Let's move on to another fight, which we will do properly in the form of Tiamat. Now, this is an impossible fight to lose with Ultima Junctioned to magic defense. Tiamat only has 1 attack, and it's elemental. This means no matter what, it is literally impossible for him to hurt me. This means we can slowly whack him down with a barrage of spells. And if you didn't know, Tiamat is just a time-compressed Bahamut, which means we can finally mark our bingo cards for a Bahamut kill. Sorry, Daff, but look, it has to be done. Otherwise, I get withdrawals, and since we couldn't do the earlier one, we absolutely had to do this one. It did take a little while though, only getting basic magic with a few Gar spells every now and again, but as I mentioned, it was completely impossible for us to die. Just a good job I didn't fat finger a healing spell, or we would have been in huge trouble. And yes, some of you might have noticed the dark secret right now, and if you didn't, well, allow me to explain. I'm purposely dragging this explanation out a little more to make the Bahamut murder go on just a little bit longer. And now we can unlock the save ability, so let's head for Ultimecia. Now, there's a lot that can go horribly wrong here, so let's break down the attacks and what they do. So, we have Maelstrom. This is a gravity-based attack that deals 62.5% of my current health as damage in phase 1. Griever has some attacks like Gravager, which deals 75% of my health, and the worst one, Shockwave Pulsar. Not sure how much damage this will do with Auto Shell and a really high spirit, but we'll see. Ultimecia and Griever, or Phase 3, she can summon the Helixes, which give her Ultima and Meteor, as well as other targets for my magic to hit, and a bunch of different melee attacks with different effects. Oh, and the Helixes will counter when they get hit. Not to mention, Great Attractor. In her final form, we have her worst and most dangerous attack, Howl's Judgment, a move which instantly lowers my HP down to 1, and then Apocalypse as well. Again, in this form, she has her lower body parts as an extra target. And of course, pretty much all forms can blow away my junctions, which is also not super ideal. So, with all that information to make your choice, don't cheat and skip ahead. Pause the video and comment your suggestions if we can do this. Okay, now you've commented if you think we can or not, let's try it. Oh, and this first attempt didn't count since, well, we got 2 shots, so let's go again, properly this time. And oh my lord, there's a lot to unpack here also. Now, please understand you won't be seeing the whole fight, because this video would easily double in length. The amount of time this took is unreal. So, we start with Selphie in the party, which is great. Ulti slowly starts to kill off my other members, all the while I'm slowly chipping away at her health with mostly lower level spells. Thankfully though, we got a low level range Ultimecia, so phase 1 actually died very quickly, and we're in no danger thanks to elemental magic not being able to do anything to me. Now we're on to phase 2, Griever. We do get hit by Shockwave a couple of times, but it's not too terrible, and thankfully with Auto Shell lowering the potency of Gravager, we still stay pretty strong. Doom and Pain can be ignored thanks to having Ribbon, but this was again a little bit of a slugfest. We did however get a couple of decent spells this time around, like Meteor. So let's talk phase 3. And this was horrible. Like, seriously horrible. Firstly, my attacks just kept on constantly hitting the Helixes. My magic was constantly being blown away. Great Attractor deals insane damage compared to everything else, so I was constantly searching for Cure and Cure in the slots to actually stay alive. This form alone took nearly 20 minutes, because I just could not land any proper hits on the main body. And we got super unlucky with getting a high level range as her HP just seemed to go on forever. Literally, the way we got through this phase was I was finally able to get the end to use. Although, knowing my luck, she was likely only a few hits away from death anyway. Although, during this phase, I did use a Drain spell, which for some reason didn't heal me. Anybody know why? But now, we're on the giant pain in the butt. Now, straight off the bat, my Ultima Junction got blown away. This now means every single attack she uses can hurt me. And it's also the worst form with it as well, since Howl's Judgment can lower my HP all the way down to 1. Which, I might add, happened way too often. Especially when you consider this fight took me an insane 40 minutes just for this form. We got a couple of good spells, but very few. A lot of the time, I was countering Howl's Judgment with any quick healing spell I was lucky enough to get, just to at least keep me alive. And considering the boss has over 100,000 HP as well, yeah, you know this took a while. We also did not get the end either. Thankfully though, everything did pretty low damage, and her melee attacks pretty much always missed. The biggest threat here was literally just Howl's Judgment, so I stayed super focused though, and the minute I saw her using it, I instantly stopped searching for an attack and went straight for healing. This worked about 90% of the time, other than the few times she used it while I was charging my ATB. Those were some very panic-filled moments, but eventually we managed to start the talking sequence. But no, we're not out of the woods yet. She can still kill me here since I still need to attack her so many times. I don't need to do any specific amount of damage now though. Heck, I could do 1 damage per turn and it would still advance on. But now she's just being super evil with Howl's Judgment. I've also lost pretty much all of my junctions. Thankfully, she never got my Reflect magic, which is on my Spirit stat, so my magic defense is still really nice. And she also didn't get any magic junction either. This is where the carefulness went into overdrive. I was slowly working my way through the conversation hit while making sure I stay alive, until finally, she imploded in all of her glory. Honestly, I just summed up an entire hour-long fight in like 2 minutes. I don't think it does the fight justice, so maybe I'll upload the full fight to my VOD channel. What do you all think? But there we go. Outside of 2 fights, which it was entirely impossible to even have Selphie in the party for, we just completed the entire game only using the slot limit break. Honestly, hardest challenge I've done so far for FF8. I know I did magic only before, but at least then I had 3 characters spamming triple meteor. I didn't get that luxury this time around, and basically was forced to use tier 1 and tier 2 magic for 80% of the game. But now I ask you all, what's the next challenge? There's honestly tons of hints in this video, and I've gone super overboard with them, I feel. Also, remember to comment to get your entry in for our usual subscriber merge giveaway. And hey, remember to check out Ko-Fi and all my other socials linked down below for some super cool surprises. Not saying what they are, but you won't be disappointed by following me on other places or by joining our Discord server. Just saying, if you miss out now, it's your own fault. Until next time though, everybody, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.